Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are starting week 3 of our journey through Habakkuk, and we are going to start this week applying Habakkuk's lessons to our own lives. So, as we enter week 3, we move from understanding Habakkuk's wrestling with God and trusting in his sovereignty to applying these lessons in our own lives. So, Habakkuk learned to trust God's plan even when it didn't make sense and to rejoice in him despite difficult circumstances. This week, we'll explore how to live by faith in the midst of trials and to trust in God's perfect timing and develop endurance in our walk with him. And so, looking ahead, we are called to strengthen our faith and put it into action daily. And today's topic is trusting God fully. And the scripture for today is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And I'm sure that many of you know it already. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, submit to him, and he will direct your paths, and he will make your path straight. All right. So, just a couple things I want to share today. Today, at the core, Major Mike did a sermon, and he talked about being joy filled. Um, and a couple of the things that he said that kind of I felt was important today is a merry heart is like medicine, and we know that that's found in Scripture. Um, and so, um, and also he was talking about how um, we as Salvationists and we as Christians, we are Easter people. So we trust that, we believe that Christ died on the cross for us all those years ago. And his love and mercy is still there for us. And that um, nothing can take that away from us. Um, and, with God's love uh, and him sending Christ um, to us, then we can trust God fully. And this is one of the greatest challenges of faith. And by nature, we want to rely on our own understanding, however, our own logic, our own experiences, our ability, or our plan for the future. But true faith, true Easter people, requires us to surrender and the willingness to trust even when things don't make sense. Habakkuk's journey mirrors the truth in this passage from Proverbs. He began by wrestling with God, questioning his justice and timing, and he couldn't understand why evil seemed to prevail, why God remained silent. But as he reflected on God's faithfulness, his perspective changed. And by the end of the book, we see that Habakkuk didn't have all the answers, but he had learned to trust God completely. His circumstances had not changed, but his heart had. So, in this passage from Proverbs, it gives us 3 key instructions for trusting God. The first, trust in the Lord with all your heart, not just when things are easier, when we see the path ahead, but even when life is confusing, when life is painful, and when life is uncertain. The second, lean not on our own understanding. We need to acknowledge that God's wisdom is higher than ours, and we don't have to understand everything to trust that he is in control. And third, submit him to him in all your ways. Surrender every decision, every plan, every worry into his hands. True faith means trusting not just with words, but also with our actions and our choices. God's promise is that he will make our path straight. When we choose to trust and submit to God, he promises to direct our path. This does not mean life will always be easy or that we will never face difficulties. Instead, what it means is that he will guide us. And when we don't, especially when we don't know which way to go, he will sustain us when this journey feels overwhelming to us. Next, he will lead us to exactly where we need to be in his perfect timing. In our Sunday school class, we talked about putting on the full armor of God today. And we talked about trusting God in his will, and again here his perfect timing. And we talked about when we talk about you know putting on each of those things in when we talk about the armor of God. One of the things that we talked about, um, it was the shoes of the gospel of peace, and we talked about how with Christ, he when we talk about that saying, you until you walk in somebody else's shoes, you don't understand, right? But God, Jesus did. He understands the pain. He understands the fear, um, and the worry. And even when it was him, the day that he, you know, crying out to God himself, to his Father, um, when it was his time to die on that cross. Um, but again, he trusted the Lord. So he has walked in our shoes. Um, and so our job is, we don't have to figure everything out on our own. We only need to trust in the one that already has the plan. And so, how do we trust God daily? First, identify areas where you struggle to trust. Um, what situation in your life feels uncertain right now? Where do you find yourself worrying and doubting and trying to take control? Next, practice surrendering your fears to God. Take a moment to pray and hand over those concerns to Him. Next, remind yourself of God's faithfulness. Look back over your life and on times when He has provided, guided, or strengthened you. If He was faithful then, He will be faithful now. So, again, in what area of your life is it that you continue to struggle and you need to trust God fully? How can you practice surrendering your worries to Him every day? And we kind of talked a little bit about this, and we talked again about this, that God, when He speaks to me, He doesn't come down in this big booming voice, right? He just simply things are repeated in Bible study on Sundays, in Sunday school, and then also in the sermons on Sunday. Um, and and so one of the things that has been coming to me lately is this practice of surrendering my worries, and then also in the area where I struggle most. And we shared that in church today, in our adult Sunday school class, about how what do we need to do with the armor of God? What do we need to put on? And the first one we need to put on is the one we struggle with the most. Um, and so that's practicing surrendering to Him. So my prayer for you today is that, Lord, help us to trust you completely, even when we don't understand. Teach us to surrender our fears, our plans, and our uncertainties into your hands. Strengthen our faith so that we can walk in obedience and peace, knowing that you are guiding our path. And I hope that as you think about this lesson today, that you can reflect upon those questions. What area in your life, what is the area in your life where you struggle to trust God fully? And how can you practice surrendering your worries to Him? And take that prayer and just surrender it to Him, even if you have to do it on a daily basis or multiple times a day. Again, be faithful and just trust in the Lord. I love you, and we'll see you again.